So first, we're going to do um, an herb or plant, rather. Um, all of the broadcasters have been going over picking a specific herb and and going over just some basic information about it with every broadcast. So um, tonight I'm going to go over oak. It's not exactly an herb, but it's still along the same lines. The Latin name for oak is Quercus alba, and the term oak can be used as part of the common name of about 400 different species of trees and shrubs. It's native to the northern hemisphere and includes deciduous and evergreen species, extending from cold latitudes to tropical Asia and the Americas. Some of the different types of oak are live oak, white oak, black oak. No, I'm not sitting still. I think you froze, Spirit Song. But as long as you still got sound, then it'll catch back up. No, Natasha, I have not felt well enough to do a trivia thing about this. Sorry, maybe next time. So, okay, anyway, some of the different species of oak are live oak, white oak, black oak, water chestnut is actually an oak. There's dozens of different ones. Back home where I grew up in Louisiana, we had a gigantic live oak in our front yard. The trunk was probably about 5 feet in diameter. It was really gigantic, and last fall, lightning struck the top of it and broke half of the tree off, and I've been afraid to ask my sister if it's even still alive because that oak tree, we all climbed it. It was a beautiful tree. But anyway, enough maudlin. Okay. For medicinal uses, now there are some medicinal uses for oak, but there are also some pretty strong precautions with it and a lot of do not uses. So I'm going to give you the information, but I really wouldn't suggest trying to use oak too much. And remember that any information any of the broadcasters give on medicinal uses for these herbs, please do further research. Please talk to your doctors before you use anything. Make sure it's not going to cause you any issues. Okay, we are not medical professionals and we are not giving medical advice, just information. Okay, the external use for the bark is you can use the bark directly on the skin as a compress or add it to bath water for pain and swelling of the skin, mouth, throat, genitals, and anal region, or for red, itchy skin due to cold exposure. However, do not use oak baths or oak bark on damaged skin. If you have cuts, scrapes, scratches, or lesions, blisters, whatever, do not use oak on your skin at those times. Oak bark is used in a tea for diarrhea, colds, fever, cough, and bronchitis, for stimulating the appetite, and for improving digestion. However, you should never use oak tea, oak bark, anything internally if you have infectious disorders, cardiac disorders, or hypertonia, which is a stiffening of the muscles due to a neural condition. So, oak bark contains tannins, which might help treat diarrhea and inflammation, and it might be safe for most people when taken for up to 3 to 4 days, never more than that for diarrhea. Oak bark can cause serious side effects such as stomach and intestinal problems and kidney and liver damage. It can be applied directly to the skin for up to 2 to 3 weeks, but any longer than that is definitely a no-no. And remember, if your skin is broken or damaged, don't use it. Do not ever use oak bark tea, oak bark on your skin, or anything like that if you're pregnant or breastfeeding, you have heart conditions, or skin conditions that damage the dermal layers of the skin, nerve conditions that include stiffening and hardening of the muscles, fever or infection, kidney problems, or liver problems. And that came from the WebMD website. So, now, you see why it has a lot of don'ts and a lot of well, maybe it's good for this, maybe it's not. It has been used in ancient times as an astringent wash for the skin and stuff like that, and for teas and stuff, but, make sure you are very, very careful with that. Alrighty, moving on. The elemental association for oak is fire, and the planet is sun. And just a little interesting side note, sun herbs and plants promote self-confidence and personal success, impart a sense of purpose and strong will, and give vitality, health, creativity, dignity, and authority. Thought that was interesting. And the gender is masculine. Some of the folk names are white oak, Thwyr, Jove's nuts, and Juglans. Some deities that are associated with oak, or that oak is sacred to, are Dagda, Dianus, Jupiter, Thor, Zeus, Kern, Janus, Rhea, Cybele, Hecate, Pan, Erato, Caradwen, and Cernunnos. And the parts used in magical working are leaves, wood, and the acorns. And the acorns are sometimes called the fruit of the tree. Job, Jove. Okay, oak can be used in spells with the magical intention for sexual potency, to regain or maintain your sexual potency, to gain protection, to obtain prosperity, money, riches, treasures, and wealth, to obtain luck, to maintain your health, to promote healing, and to increase fertility. That's just one of the folk names. I guess it comes from the shape of the acorns or something, Natasha. Okay. Some history. The oak was used as a source of food for early settlers in Britain and other places in Europe, and therefore it's been revered and worshipped far into prehistory. Druids are said to they would only meet for ritual in a grove or a location where an oak tree was present. And religious idols were fashioned from oak wood, and witches would often dance beneath the branches of an oak tree. The oak tree naturally offers protection. If you take 2 twigs and bind them together with a red thread to form an equal-armed cross, it's a safeguard against evil and should be hung in the house. Acorns placed in the windows guard against the entrance of lightning. Carrying a piece of oak wood protects you from all harm, and if you catch a falling oak leaf in the autumn, you will not have a cold all winter. If a sick person is in the house, of course, if you have a safe place or you have a fireplace, you make a fire of oak wood to warm the house and to draw off the illness. And you can carry an acorn against illnesses and pain, for immortality or longevity, and to preserve youthfulness and increase fertility and strengthen sexual potency. Planting an acorn at the dark of the moon ensures you will receive money in the near future. If you use mistletoe, the most powerful mistletoe is that grows on the on an oak. Yeah, quad pod. I was thinking about that when I when I got to that part. Didn't say it would protect the tree. Said it would protect you from the lightning coming into your house. Okay. Anyway, if you use mistletoe, the most powerful mistletoe is what is grown on oaks. You can burn oak leaves to purify the atmosphere, and the wood makes excellent all-purpose wands. Witches wore necklaces of acorns to symbolize the fertility of nature, especially throughout the winter when, reminding people that eventually things would come back to life was important. And when you gather any part of the oak, you should pour a libation of wine over the roots of the tree. And you gather acorns during the day and the leaves and wood at night. And if you do cut down oak trees, you should only cut down oak trees during the waning phase of the moon. And all the different species and different kinds of oak all have these same basic properties for magical use and stuff like that. So, we don't have a whole lot of oak trees out here in the Southwest because their roots go very, very deep and they require quite a bit of water. And especially out here where I am, it's rock and mountain, so there's not deep enough soil to get a lot of oak trees out here. So, sorry. So, any questions about oak? Mistletoe is toxic. You never take it internally. And yes, it is a parasitic plant, but it does have some magical associations. Okay. So, no questions? Discussion? Anybody have anything to add? There are 2 quad pod in some places. Yes, Archer, oak wands are good all-purpose wands. They add strength and power to pretty much anything you use them for. Okay. Now then, moving right along, the subject of this broadcast is going to be information on calling the quarters. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to cast a circle, and I'm not going to try to convince you that any one way is right or wrong. I've just looked up information on how different people, different traditions, and different paths do view the guardians, the elemental associations, and stuff like that. A lot of people ask when you talk about calling the quarters or casting a circle, it's like, well, what is that? How do you do it? Why do you do it? Blah, 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 blah. It can be kind of hard to explain. So that's why I'm going to give you this information, so maybe it can help you, the next time you're asked, you can explain it to somebody else a little better. Also, the next time you do it, maybe, you'll feel a deeper connection knowing why and how and, why other people do it. There's also a bit of controversy over where this started, where it came from, who did it first, why they did it. There's a lot of controversy about that. There are several different theories about where in the tradition of calling the quarters and why they're associated with the elements that they are. But in my mind, the history of it is interesting, and but that's something that probably will never ever be known for a fact. Um, and to me, it's not really important who did it first. I mean, if it's a neo-pagan, neo-Wiccan thing, if they did it before Wicca, if they did it back in Rome, if they did it thousands of years ago, it really doesn't matter. Calling the quarters to cast a circle is something that thousands of witches through hundreds of years, really, from the research I did, have done, and it's given them the connection, the protection, it's given them what they needed for their working, so it's all personal. If you do it how you want to do it. You don't have to do it like anybody else. Um, if you if you don't call quarters to cast a circle, or if you don't cast a circle, that's fine too. What matters is if it gives you that connection, that's great. It doesn't matter who did it first or how long it's been done. Okay, so in Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft, he calls casting a circle erecting the temple. That's his casting a circle thing, erecting the temple. And he talks of the guardians of the watchtowers or guardians of the four quarters. And he says they're often associated with specific entities such as dragons, salamanders, gnomes, sylphs, and undines. Buckland does not recommend summoning the entities, since he says invoking the Lord and Lady should be protection enough. In Buckland's tradition, they just call the energy of the elements and leave the entities associated with that energy alone. And he teaches that you go to the cardinal point of your circle and you draw an invoking pentagram with the athame and say, all hail to the element of north, watchtower of the earth. No, I got that backwards. All hail to the element of earth, watchtower of the north. May it stand in strength, ever watching over our circle. And that's the invocation to the quarters to protect the circle. And he also says, always make sure that you thank the watchtowers and release them. When you close your circle, don't ever, leave them hanging around. The circle is designed to call only the energy that you want during your ritual or spell. That's why we cast a circle, is to protect from interfering energies. Well, that's why most people cast a circle, is to protect their sacred space from any energy that might interfere with what they're trying to do. And there are calls to invoke the elements, angels, totem animals, deities, dragons, winds, the dead, ancient archetypes, ancestors, and watchtowers. I mean, different paths, different traditions, different people have all kinds of different associations for the quarters that they call. Why not what, Quadpod? Okay, anyway. All right. Raven Grimassi, in his book, The History of Italian Witchcraft, has this to say. In Italian witchcraft, the beings known as the Grigori, translated as watchers, are an integral aspect of the belief system. Over the course of many centuries, the initiates of Italian witchcraft have developed various signs and gestures that are recognized by the Grigori and indicate the presence of a trained witch of the old religion. As guardians of the portals to such realms as the astral plane, the Grigori can negate magical energy from manifesting there, which would result in a failed work or spell. Let's see. The appearance of the essential Grigori or Watcher concept in the literature on Italic paganism dates back to the archaic Roman religion, which itself is derived from the Etruscans. Ovid, in his work titled Fausti, calls the lair the night watchman. In archaic Roman religion, small towers were built at the crossroads, and an altar was set before them, upon which offerings were given to the lair. The lair were guardian spirits associated with these towers and with demarcation in general, as well as seasonal themes related to agriculture. In the early stellar cults of Mesopotamia, there were 4 royal stars called the Watchers. Each one of these stars ruled over one of the 4 cardinal points common to astrology. This particular system would date from approximately 3000 BC. The star Aldebaran, when it marked the vernal equinox, held the position of Watcher of the East. Regulus, marking the summer solstice, was Watcher of the South. Antares, marking the autumn equinox, was Watcher of the West. And Fomalhaut, marking the winter solstice, was Watcher of the North. So there are references to watchers and guardians designated to the cardinal points of the compass as far back as 3,000 years. Okay, the quarters are called to balance and protect the circle, and they form a barrier between you and the forces you're working with. An archetype of each element, known as an elemental, is called to the 4 cardinal points around the circle. These are the traditional elements for each of the quarters. The reason for this is because of where witchcraft comes from. Now, this is another theory on why the directions are associated with which element they are. A lot of our traditions are based in Celtic spirituality. The Celts came from the east and settled in the British Isles. If you were in Britain, you would find that in the north is the mountainous region of Scotland, the earth. To the west is the ocean, so water is west. The farther south you go, the warmer it gets. So south was associated with fire, which left air in the east. That's what this writer of the website I got that from said about why we associate the elements with the directions that we do. Most people start in the east because that's the direction from which the sun rises. The day starts in the east, and because of everything we do has sympathetic significance, that's why we start in the east. Air is the element of thought and intelligence. All things mental come from here. Creativity, invention, and inspiration are the attributes of air. So that's east. In the south, there's fire. Fire transforms. First, it destroys the old to make room for new growth. And it shows us that you must get rid of the old so that you have room for something new. Anger, passion, love, and transformation are attributed to fire. In the west, there's water. Water is the creator and the mother of us all. It begins in the womb. We're in fluid called water, and it nurtures us. It represents all things that flow, and emotion is the most common thing attributed to water, but meditation, introspection, and dreams are also in the realm of water. In the north comes the earth, and the earth is our foundation. It's what we build on. It's what we come from. It is also where we send excess energy that we don't wish to keep. Earth gives us foundation, grounding, wisdom, and prosperity. Earth is also where our physical bodies return when we're done with them. So these elements balance the circle. Okay, elementals There's different ways to do this. You can call on the energy of the element associated with that direction, or you can call on an elemental entity, which is actually a being or consciousness created purely from that element. Okay. For me, I just call on the energy of the element. I don't call on any elemental entities, because they can be tricky little buggers, and it takes a lot of energy and concentration to keep them in place and under control, and to send them back, because a lot of times once you pull them out of their elemental plane, they want to stay around and play, and it can cause some imbalance. So that's why I don't use the elementals very much. I have called them, but I don't need that much elemental energy most of the time. Okay, elementals are not evil or malevolent. They just follow their nature. They're basically one-track minds. A water elemental wants water to flow. It wants, moisture. It wants to play. Fire elementals want to burn. That it's just what they are. It's who they are. And they really aren't anything else. The elemental entity is solely of that element. So that's why you have to keep them under control. But they're not evil. They're not, or anything like that. They're just what they are. It's really not easy to invoke an elemental entity either, because you have to find them in the first place. And to do that, you have to connect with that elemental plane. Then you have to find one, and then you have to pull it to you and lock it in place. And they're kind of willful. Like I said, they are what they are, and they want to do what they do. So it takes a lot of energy to do that. And if you do invoke an elemental, please, please always make sure you send it back to its plane. Do not leave it hanging around in our plane. If it gets loose from you, like I said, it can cause some imbalances, and it's just not a good idea. Okay. All right, it's 7:30. Does anybody need to take a break? Anybody have any questions or anything so far? Is anybody even still listening to me? Okay, Hill. The element, yes, MCM, you do choose the element before you open the door to that elemental plane. But to find an elemental entity, you have to search through that plane and bring a specific elemental entity out. You don't have to open the portal to bring it out to find it, but you do have to go through there somehow. You have to get into that plane somehow to find it. So APET, what they look like, that's pretty much up to how you see them. You can see them as the little cartoon flame guy that goes around on the Bugs Bunny cartoon setting fire to everything. You can see them as dragons. You see them how you connect to them. I really can't tell you what they look like, because When I invoked, basically what they looked like was just the elements. The fire elemental looked like a flame, like a candle flame. The earth elemental was a rock. The air elemental was just movement. It wasn't really form, you know. So, yeah. Yeah, a lot of people associate dragons with the elements. Fire dragons, water dragons, all that kind of stuff. And I'll talk about that some a little later on. Okay. Um, all right. Now I have a few examples of um what and these came from a website that, where's my URL? I'll type the URL in. Okay, I know I have the URL somewhere. Oh, it's farther down. I went to some different websites and just found examples of what different people say. So one is, welcome elementals of the north of earth. I ask that you bring your gifts of patience, endurance, stability, and prosperity to this circle. Welcome elementals of the east of air. I ask that you bring your gifts of wisdom, intellect, perception, and inspiration to this circle. Welcome elements of the south of fire. I ask that you bring your gifts of passion, strength, energy, and willpower to this circle. Welcome elementals of the west of water. I ask that you bring your gifts of emotion, pleasure, fertility, and receptivity to this circle. Welcome elementals of the center of spirit. I ask that you bring guidance to this circle. So that's one person's way of saying it. And when they closed their circle, they went in the exact opposite direction and said, thank you for the gifts that you have brought to this circle. Stay if you will, go if you must. Hail and farewell. So that's one person's. Some of them are longer and more in depth, like this one. Hail unto you, O guardians of the watchtower of the east, powers of air and inspiration. We invoke you and ask you to be with us this night, to share with us your love, your guidance, and your inspiration. We pray that you will help us to open our minds and our eyes and strengthen our thoughts as we go forward this night. We bid you hail and welcome. Some of them get really, wordy and poetic. This one says, guardians of the east, powers of air, you who are thought and the wind upon my face, winged eagle of the skies, who is the morning breeze and the wrath of storms, I call upon you and invite your presence to witness this rite. And the different elements have different words and stuff like that. Okay. Some associations with the directions. For east, the colors are white or blue. Of course, it's air. For the zodiac, it's Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. The tools are the athame, or the sword. The incense is frankincense, myrrh, sandalwood, and a feather. For animals associated with air and east, it's Deosil, Deosil, Deosil. Okay. Animals associated with air and east is birds, eagle, and hawk. Goddesses associated with air and east are Aradia, Arianod, Athena, Cardia, Muit, and Urania. And gods are Enlil, Kephara, Mercury, Shu, Thoth, and Zeus. Okay. For fire, for south, the colors are red or orange. The zodiac is Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius. The tools are the wand. The items is a candle. Animals are dragons or lions. Goddesses associated with fire and south are Brigid, Hestia, Pele, and Vesta. And gods are Agni, Hephaestus, Horus, and Vulcan. For water and for the west, the colors are blue, turquoise, silver, or purple. The zodiac is Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, and the tools are the cup. The items are the cup, chalice, or bowl, and the animals are basically any water creature. Fish, whales, seals, dolphins, water snakes, or water dragons. Goddesses associated with west and water are Aphrodite, Isis, Mariamne, Mari, and Tiamat. And gods are Dylan, Ea, Lear, Manannan, Osiris, Neptune, and Poseidon. And for earth and north, the colors are black, brown, or green. For the zodiac, it's Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn. And the tools are the pentacle. Items are earth, salt, and sand. For the animals associated with earth and north, it's the cow, bull, bison, snake, and stag. Goddesses associated with earth are Ceres, Demeter, Gaia, Hera, Ma, Nephthys, Persephone, Prithvi, Rhea, and Rhiannon. For gods, Adonis, Ethos, Aaron, Cernunnos, Dionysius, Marduk, Pan, and Tammuz. So those are some correspondences, different things that people use to call on the elements and stuff like that. Okay. Now then, I'm going to give you a website that I found quite a bit of interesting information on. Okay. My typing is not nearly as fast or as accurate as it used to be, and it irritates me. I'm going to make sure I type that right first. Okay. There's the website that I got all of the next information from, and it went through several different books, lots of different traditions, and gave information about, calling the quarters, about the guardians, and different ways that they're seen and explained. There's lots of terms that people use for this. Been called casting a circle, calling the quarters, honoring the elementals, calling on the four guardians, saluting the watchtowers, lesser banishing ritual, opening the four gates, divine incantation to the protective gods of the four decorations. It just depends on how pretentious you want to be, I guess. And the quarters reside in the cardinal points of east, south, west, and north. But when you call the quarters, you're doing more than simply circling the compass. You are inviting the symbolic energies for each of them to attend and guard over your working and to become part of your magic. To call the quarter, first you face in the direction of that quarter, and you draw the image of that element to you. You can do this in many different ways. You can use an athame or a wand. You can draw a pentagram in the air. You can draw a rune or some other symbol that is important to you, that you associate with that element. You can use hand gestures. You can just stand there and say it. The way I usually do it is I just open my arms and say my invitation. Um, so it's really up to you and what you've been taught, what you feel is right as to how you actually do it. Um, okay, on this website, it's a book called Guardians of the Watchtowers, Elementals Calling the Quarters by House Shadow Drake. It says that traditional witchcraft does not utilize the calling of watchtowers. It does, however, call guardians. And to me, I think that's pretty much semantic, because a watchtower is associated with a guardian, with protecting something. A guardian is an entity that protects, the person that protects. So the guardian stays in the watchtower, watching out for trouble. So to me, that's semantics, but people argue with me. Possible guardians might be ancestor spirits, or spirit guides, or some other spiritual entity that the person is familiar with. It does not have to be an elemental or something associated with the elements that direction is associated with. It can be something else, a deity, like I said, an ancestor spirit or some other kind of spirit guide or protective spirit that you call on. It does not have to be the element. In some traditions, actually, the guardians are known as the Old Ones, and they are invoked as the Old Ones. Those who were the fathers and mothers of the beginning, the spirits who were before the first spirit. Some traditions say that the Watchers were an ancient race who have evolved beyond the need for physical form, or that they are our own ancient ancestors who have passed beyond the circle of rebirth. Yeah, so like it can be anything that resonates with you that you feel you need to protect your space and to assist you in your working. I'm kind of glancing through this. This was a lot of information that I got. Okay, so we went over the stars. Angels. Some people call archangels as their guardians. For north and earth is Uriel. The east or air is Raphael. The south or fire is Michael. And the west or water is Gabriel. In the Enochian system of magic, brought to public attention by Dr. John Dee and Edward Kelly in the 16th century, we find the inclusion of watchtowers as complex evocational designs. Some people believe that the watchtowers have their origin in the Enochian magic symbol revealed to the Elizabethan magician John Dee and his scryer Edward Kelly, which was later developed into a working system of magic by S.L. MacGregor Mathers. Okay. Dee's work was revived and expounded upon by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. So in the Golden Dawn magical systems, the 4 angelic Enochian tablets became the 4 watchtowers. Okay. When Gerald Gardner was constructing Wicca, a major source for his rituals was the Key of Solomon. And there he developed the calling of the quarters in Wicca from references in the Key of Solomon. In the east, you have the azure dragon of the east, wood and spring. The vermilion bird of the south, fire and summer. The white tiger of the west, metal, autumn and fall. And the black tortoise of the north, water, and winter. The yellow dragon of the center, Huang Long, is the center and the earth. So even in Eastern traditions, there are references to the directions being associated with the elements. In Buddhism, there are references to guardians that are associated with elements in the directions. The Black Thangka is a sigil that depicts three transcendental cosmic Buddhas in a row, seated on exquisitely decorated thrones. Two adepts are standing with folded hands below their thrones. Below are four Lokopalas, who are the protectors of Buddhism for all four directions of the universe. Virupaksha is the king or guardian of the west. Vashravana is the king or guardian of the north. Viradaka, the king or guardian of the south. And Dhritarashtra, try saying that 4 times fast, is the king or guardian of the east. They're known as the Chatur Maharajika, or the four kings, and they are mentioned in the earliest Buddhist works. It is said that the deities live on the shoulders of the axial mountain Sumeru and guard the entrances to Indra's heaven from the marauding titans or anti-gods. Okay. Invocation in Buddhism to these directional kings is Dhritarashtra, guardian of the east gate, the powerful diamond king, Chikwotian, in tune with the wise, white as the shining sun, protector, energizer, honoring the three treasures, keeping treasured kingdoms whole, saver of the earth, helping unravel the illusions of self, and freeing the slaves of Mara, vowing to aid all who strive to achieve the supreme awakening. Viradaka, guardian of the south gate, the boundless diamond king, Zinchangtian, with shimmering sword in hand, blue as the great sky, spurring growth, increasing grandeur, subduing demons, frightening evil ones, cutting through ignorance, vowing to help everyone master limited approaches to Dharma. You get the idea. It's yeah, in those Eastern traditions, they are all about a lot of praise, a lot of flattery, I guess, and they get very wordy. Okay, and Rathenbjorn sent me some information about creating sacred space in heathenism, and the Gylfaginning are the dwarves that were set at the four corners of the earth. And an excerpt from one of the stories, is when Odin, Vili, and Ve, which Odin was inspiration and intellect, Vili was the will, and Ve was sacred space. When they created the cosmos, they put 4 dwarves in the directions. And a direct quote from the story is, they took his skull also and made of it the heaven and set it up over the earth with 4 corners. And under each corner they set a dwarf. The names of these are east, west, north, and south. So basically they stuck these dwarves under their creation to hold it up. And to create Ve, or to create sacred space, basically they start in the north. They call on Thor they use fire, and they call on Thor to protect the space with an invocation as simple as Thor, hallow this holy place. I'm sure different people have different words they use, different, heathen traditions have different words they use, but basically they just stand in the corner holding fire and calling on Thor to create their space, and then they go to the next quarter to the east, say the same thing, to the south, say the same thing. So in heathenism, basically, that's how they create sacred space and call on the quarters. Okay, so that's all I got. Are there any questions, comments? Anybody want to add anything? Hi, Raven. Okay, so I hope I didn't put anybody to sleep. And I hope that you at least kind of, if anybody had questions about calling the quarters or anything like that, um, I hope that gave them some more information to maybe help them be able to explain it when they're asked about it. Um, and I'm sorry, sorry if I bored anybody or put anybody to sleep. And if there's no questions or nobody has anything to add, then I'll sign off and say thank you very much. I appreciate you watching, and make sure you check the broadcast schedules for the other broadcasters to learn from them too. So, thank you and good night.